Alright, so here's a Weatherby PA-08, completely disassembled. I've taken the trigger apart, the firing pin, all the stock, all the pieces are here, so now I'm going to show you how to put it back together. Alright, so I have the receiver of the gun here, and if you look up on the inside, which my lighting is really bad, but right here you'll see pins here and here, well, holes. I've taken the pins out already. This is actually the most difficult part of disassembling and cleaning this gun. So if you want to use a spray cleaner in here and just avoid the hassle, that's fine. But there's actually a feed lever and a shell lever on either side of the inside here. Very difficult to get out, very difficult to put back in. I'm going to show you how to do it, but don't approach this lightly. You can easily just buy a can of spray cleaner and take care of this. Alright, here we have the feed latch assembly. This is the spring, the latch, and the pin. First you take the feed latch and the spring and insert it so the holes line up. Flip it over with this little catch pin, so this catch side of the pin down, and insert some type of a pin in there. I'm going to use this little screwdriver because it fits good. That's what I got. Next, I'm going to take the receiver. I'm holding it upside down, and it fits right on the inside in here. You can't really see it. Light's bad. Trust me, it's where it goes. Next, you want to kind of position it in place. Get the latch, the little extra flap in there first, and just kind of press that side in. Just down in there. You can't really see it, but press it down in there. And then you want to kind of pull, in my case, pull the screwdriver out ever so slightly. You just pull it out nice and slow. Keep pressure on it, and it'll slowly just keep falling into place. Just pull it out. But you'll know you get it right when on the inside, the very front of the latch wants to spring back when you press on it. Then it's correct. The next thing you do is you take your pen, and it's got an indentation on it that faces up because the gun's upside down right now, so the indentation is towards the bottom. And I've already put a little oil on this pen so it comes out easy next time. And you just slide it in there, and you just tap it in with something firm. And I'm going to use this pair of pliers. Just give it a few taps. That's it. Now, you got to make it flush, and you can see now it's not flush. So I'm just going to take the screwdriver. You'll hear a pop, maybe. We'll see how sensitive it is. But you'll feel it, so you just want to go nice and slow. If you push too far, you got to start all over. There it goes. Sorry, it's out of focus, but it just popped right in. That's it. The other side's much easier. Here's the other side. Just a little lever. This spring actually comes off, so you can clean it. I've already done so. Pops right back on there. There we go. That fits on the other side, which is here. And there's a little recess here in the top for the handle. This one's easy. Just set it in place, line up the holes, compress the spring, and slide the pin in. Same deal. A little bit of oil in the pin. The notch goes towards the bottom of the gun. So just slide it in. You'll feel it go past the retainer, and then you just kind of get it in its place, and just like before, a little press. There it is. You'll hear it snap into place. That's it. You can see, I don't know if you can see or not, but it's working pretty good right there. I don't know if I can get the other one in focus for you. Let's see if we can. My finger's on the way, but definitely moves. There you go. Let's just spring back up. That's it. That is the most difficult part. and it is now done. So now we're going to put the trigger back together. Alright, so here are all the parts of the trigger assembly. They're all laid out in a nice little line. And here's the actual trigger itself. Alright, so first we're going to put back together the safety mechanism, and here are the 4 parts that comprise it. There's just a spring, and this is a little housing the spring fits in. There's a retaining pin, and this is the actual safety button. You can see it's milled out in the center. I do not know if you can flip this from left to right orientation. If you can get this far, you can experiment. I like it the way it came, so that's how I'm going to put it back together. First thing is take the spring. These parts have all been oiled. Put it back in the housing like this. And this slides down into the back of the trigger guard on the top. Right in this hole. Slides right in there. Just like that. It's kind of tight, so put it in there. I'm going to take my safety. Safety slides in, just like so. And then you have to compress this pin, or this spring right here, and slide this pin through the hole in the side. And that applies pressure to the safety and allows it to click back and forth. Okay, so we are going to do that with a screwdriver. Here it is. I'm going to compress this, and you want to make sure your finger's over this hole, because if you're not careful, you'll slip, and this spring will end up on the other side of the room somewhere. So be mindful of that. So go ahead and just seat it all the way in there. Just compress it just enough, get it past the pin as it comes in, and then the pin will slide the rest of the way in. So there you go. Safety installed. Done. Alright, next we are going to install the trigger, which comprises 4 parts. The trigger itself, this little housing for the spring, and the spring pushes against this little catch piece. So let's put it together. First of all, I'll just dry fit them, even though I know they fit. These parts have all been oiled. You can see that this has a machined recess on one side, and this has a hole. They fit right together, and it lines up in the center. Now, this spring and the housing fits together like this, and then there's a hole right there in the center, which I can't get the camera to focus on, but it's right. Alright, anyway. You'll just have to trust me. It's right here. Slides in like so. Now, this piece is pretty hard to compress. The spring is pretty durable. So I'm going to put this in here, and you're going to want to not really mess with this piece once you've done this, because it wants to come apart at this point. Alright, so don't fiddle around with it. Put it together, set it aside. We'll get back to it in just a moment. Once again, oil the parts. Wipe them down after you touch them. These pieces you don't want to break. Alright, next I'm going to put the trigger inside of the trigger guard, and it just involves placing this one pin. Very simple. There's a hole here. There's another hole right here. Line them up, insert the pin. You're done. So, slide the trigger down the center like so. Remember, do not lose the parts. They will have a tendency to fly everywhere if you don't put everything back together properly. So you can already see it starting to pivot a little bit. Good. So we got a nice good fit. And now we're going to tap them together with our trusted tapping device. Of course, it doesn't want to go together. Ah, I know why. I'll show you why. This is good. You can see in here, in the center, it's not lined up just perfect in that hole. this piece here is really not wanting to go in there. So you're going to have to compress right here. You're going to have to compress this piece down. Of course, I can't get the camera to focus now. There we go. You can see it really good. It's not lined up. But if I compress this, then it lines up better and the pin will slide in. Okay? So we're going to do that while it's together. Alright, we'll slide it in there. Get the pin. Set it in the hole just a little bit where it starts rocking like it should. There we go. Now it's rocking. You see me rocking back and forth. Alright, now I'm going to pull back right here. Oh, there it goes. Slid right in place. Now, you want this pin to be about equal on either side, but you want it to at least not protrude, because then the thing won't fit in the gun. The gun housing itself will hold it in place. So there we go. Now the trigger is back in place. Perfect. Alright, so next we are going to insert this tensioning spring on this shaft. It has a retaining clip on one side. You can see it kind of hinges there, so be careful, don't lose that piece. Although do take it out, clean in there. You know, it's a little crack, it's not hard. Oil the part before you put it back on the gun. A little rag with oil. There it is, just wipe it down. This piece is not that difficult to get in, but it's not going to be easy either. You're going to need something to force it down while you insert the shaft. So I am going to go ahead and do that now. It sits in here like this. Oh, it's hard to see it, but it does fit in there. The hooked portion here goes up inside the body, and this little pin here on the bottom sits right up against one side of this. So go ahead and set it on the side, set it into place, and just get ready to start coaxing everything together. What you're going to need is you're going to need a nice wide-headed screwdriver, or I'm going to use this pair of pliers that I got here. I'm going to force this spring down, and this applies pressure against your trigger so that it wants to go back. It wants to go back when you pull it instead of being able to move it around like I could before. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to go ahead and set this up just like this. Shoot it across the room. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause this and go ahead and get this taken care of. Alright, so I went ahead and I used a small flathead screwdriver to force the spring in place while I pressed on this shaft to get it in there. And then once I had it started, I used a smaller screwdriver to coax this spring over the shaft. You have to kind of align the shaft with the hole here once you have it in order for it to fit all the way through. Then you just want it flush. Just make sure it's flush on each side. And now the trigger has some bounce to it when you pull it. It wants to come back down. So you can see it there. Alright, the next part of assembling the trigger is the latch, which actually strikes the firing pin, the spring and the cap, which provided its force. This is the pin which everything rotates about, and then this is the slide release. They all kind of fit together where they don't have to be put in all at once. Luckily this slide release can be kind of slipped in at the end, but we're going to go ahead and put together all of these parts back onto the trigger. Alright, so everything slides in to this hole here in the top. So we'll go ahead and drop the spring in first. The cap goes on top. Make sure sorry, didn't know if the spring had a flat side. They both are flat. Okay. And that just fits right there on top. Now this spring is actually pretty powerful here, so once again, don't force it down and let it go and lose this on the other side of the room. It will happen. Next, the trigger mechanism that strikes the firing pin, it slips in here. It's kind of a tight fit, so definitely wipe that down with some oil. Get that with a little lubrication. Make sure it's clean. You don't want your gun falling apart. There you go. So go ahead and slip that in there. You can see it already lines up, but this spring here needs to be below the arm here on the lever. So go ahead and get this pin ready to slide in here like this. You can go ahead and slide it in. You should be able to slide it in. Hold on a second, let me pull that out. Okay, so mine's got some wear on it where it's already been ridden on right in the center, so I'm going to line that back up with the mechanism where it was sitting before. Okay, so I'm going to line it up just like that. Sorry about that. Alright, so we're going to put that in the hole and press that into place. It helps if you start this out in the right position. Go ahead and compress that down a little bit and get this on top. Okay, so we're going to start over. Do not put it in like this. That is wrong. You can't rotate it. The plastic has an indent here in the top, in this groove down here, that won't let the corner rotate past it. So don't force it, you'll break it. Go ahead and set it in like so. Get it in place. Don't let it fly across the room. Hold it and then insert the pin and push the pin through. There you go. Now your trigger assembly is in place. Alright, go ahead and test it. There you go. You've now cocked your gun and you fire it. That's it. Alright, so we're going to install the lifter and the slide release. So go ahead and cock the trigger mechanism. Make sure that this pin stays in place here. Put the safety on so you don't accidentally hit the trigger and smack yourself with a knuckle. And then you want to install the slide release. Just kind of sits right on there like that. The pin, which slides in between the groove. There's a groove in there. You just put it in and it goes over top of this little grooved shaft here. And then pull it up onto the housing, just like that. So now, say we want to get some tension in this direction here. Whoa, be careful because it'll fly off. And also, there's a lever right here which fits on top of this plunger which we pushed down earlier. Go ahead and recock it, lock the safety. Now we are going to put the pusher, or the lifter, sorry, in place, which I'm doing upside down now. The lifter just sits on the housing. There's a hole right here. These are the last couple pieces of the trigger, spring, and the pusher. Install them, drop them in the hole. This is pretty hard to compress. Don't let it fly across the room. There's a notch which fits over top of the shaft that we put in place earlier. So you're going to have to compress with your thumb, get it lined up. There we go. That inserted. Just push it down a little bit. Alright, there we go. That is now inserted, and there is this final pin. There's a little wash, or a little piece of wire on the top, same as the one before. It slides in the side. You're going to have to wiggle it around, get it in place. Oh, there it goes. Boom. There is your finished and assembled trigger assembly. Lifter is working well. Slide release working well. Go ahead and this would be a fired state here, and so the slide release is already locked in the up position. So you would then be able to rack your next shell when you pull back. This would actually lift the shell into place for you as you fired your gun. So that's that. Now we will cover putting the firing pin back together. Alright, here are the parts of the firing pin assembly. These four parts are what catch the shell and extract it from the chamber. And then this here is your firing pin, and lifts the shell and pushes it into the chamber. And this is the actual entire housing which all this fits in. So we are going to go ahead and assemble these parts. You will need something to pound these in place. I'm just going to use a flattened nail, but if you have an awl or a specialized tool for this, then by all means go ahead. So firing pin spring fits over the top like so. There is a slice cut out of the firing pin here on the side, which this pin rests in, and it's a retaining pin, so it holds it in place. Go ahead and oil up the sides of this piece, since it actually has quite a bit of friction on it. You want to make sure there's some oil on there. And this piece sits inside of the housing. You have to insert it from the bottom. Now I can't get it to go back in there. Well, maybe insert it from the top. I can't remember how I pulled it out of there. Let's try it from this way. Okay, so insert it from the top. So there you go. Just fits in there just like that. Alright, the firing pin with the spring then slides through just like this. You can see that it is coming out the end there. Make sure that the groove is facing through the hole, which you can kind of see there with my finger behind it. So, oh, sorry, I turned the wrong way. So face it this way. Face it down where the hole is. This pin inserts in the bottom. So I'm going to flip this over, compress the firing pin, just push it in all the way, and press this pin back into place. Now it has to be flush with the bottom of this housing, because it's then going to rest on the rail. So you're going to want to take a nail or an awl or whatever you have and just tap it into place. Okay, so it's hard to see it, but you know you're finished when it is recessed below the level of the housing. So if it's above, keep tapping. If you can get it below, well, you're done. The next is to install the the catch lever for the shell extractor, which is right here. It's hard to focus on because it's so tiny, but you can see there's a curved edge. It can only point forward. There you go, you can see that pretty good. It sits inside the housing like this, and there is a spring and a pusher, which is a little different from the other design. It actually has a shaft that slides into the center of the spring. So you're going to want to just give a little light oil on that. Set that in there. These parts are going to be bouncing around in here. This guy actually sits, that's as far down as he sits, just like that. So you're going to take the shell extractor, and it actually fits right in this groove, and you can push it into place, and once you get that far enough, boom, that's it. Slides right in there, holding it down. Perfect, just what you want. This pin, give it a little oil. If you ever take it out in the future, you'll thank yourself. It's just like the plug on your car or the seal on your oil filter. Always want to make your life easier in the future. Okay, so this sits in here like so. It should go in pretty easy. You may have to wiggle the shell extractor around a little bit. So there you go. Once again, tap it in place just like before. It needs to be below the surface of the housing. So I'm going to do that. Alright, there we have it. It's all put back together. You can see the lever here. Shell extractor is working. Firing pin working. And this shell carrier, or whatever, I don't know what the official name for it is, also working. So the firing pin has now been put back together. Alright, next we are going to put the slide back together, and for that obviously we need the slide itself, and then we have the two tubes. Move the camera out here, parts are getting bigger. The slide is the two inner housing tubes. There's a retaining pin, and then the actual rails inside the slide itself. Alright, so let's go ahead and get this all assembled inside. First thing you need to do is you take this guy, set this retaining pin, let me back up here so you can see, set the retaining pin on top and just push it down, okay? And you just rotate it around to where it needs to be. The next is this piece actually sits in here, but these retaining pins need to be on the inside of the wall. You can see the bottom one just by happenstance happened to fall in place there. Now this is not going to be easy to put back together. You will need something to help you. My fingers don't have any strength left in them today. So I'm going to have, well, let's see, maybe I get it in there. Alright, there we go, I got it. Alright, so just shimmy it around, there we go. You shimmy it around until it fits back in place, and we have it back together. Go ahead and focus in on that. I did take it apart using just a larger pair of pliers, so once you get it out, that's it. Now to put it back inside the housing, right here, first you want to make sure it's clean on the inside, so we did that already. And here is the screw which fits on the end. You can see the top is notched. I imagine that that's for a tool, which I do not own, but I did go ahead and wire brush out all the grooves, put a light coat of oil on them, protect them because they are machined and they are not coated at all. So you want to go ahead and do that. So wipe it down just to do our due diligence. Go ahead and give the outside a little wipe down, and you want to insert. Let's force this camera up a little bit. There we go. You want to insert the housing into the tube like that, right where it was. And then take this cap with the grooves, take the cap with the grooves facing out, slide them in, and I don't happen to have the tool, so this is going to take forever, but then you just kind of screw it down until it's tight. I have finished screwing everything back together, and the slide will not come apart from the barrel. I tightened this down as well as I could. I went ahead and just used a pair of pliers and grabbed it and spun it around. That is satisfactory. Alright, next we are going to install the shell carrier, or the shell tube, back onto the housing and put the spring back in. And like me, I just shoot skeet. I don't actually go out and shoot any game birds just yet, so I'm not going to put a plug in, but I will point that out when we get to it. So let's go ahead and take care of that. So first, what you're going to want to do is the end of the barrel, which faces away from the gun, has the wider threads, and the thinner threads actually screw into the housing of the gun. So take the cap and drop it from the end that has the wider threads toward the end that has the the end that has the thinner threads towards the end of the wider threads. Also, there's a little groove right here. So you can go ahead and insert this pin first if you want, and drop it down, but it always falls out on me. Oh, maybe not this time. Okay, so it's in place. All right, so that's in there. That's actually you'd put the choke tube behind it at this point, and then drop this into the barrel over the choke tube. Cap is back in the end. Drop this cap down. drop that cap down the tube, face them out. There, we'll put them in. We'll put them in this way. See how that works this time. Put the spring in and force it up to the top. See if that works out better for us. Oh yeah, that's much better. Alright, so we'll go ahead and put this spring back in here. Orange cap with the end of the spring. There we go. Alright, so we're going to put that back on the end. This time I'll brace it against my foot so I can't fly away. I'll start threading it in. There, it started. I can feel it. Alright, good. And you just screw it down nice and tight. Now, if you have any oil in your hands, clean it off. If this gets too hard, get that in there. Get it in there tight, just like that. There we go. We have that pieces back together. We're almost in the home stretch here. Butt plate. I took this off the first time when I first bought the gun because there was some problems with it catching shells, and cleaned it out and found some metal shavings. So I definitely recommend taking the gun apart and just give it a good once over first after you buy it. So if you look in the end here, you can barely tell, but I've taken it out a few times, but the screws are actually located in little cuts in the back. So if you ever replace the butt plate, this is how you do it. So we're going to go ahead and install the stock and everything back on the end of this gun so that we can put the rest of it together. Alright, so it fits in. Fits on there like that. And this is a socket, so you're going to need a socket to do this. You just insert this into the end. There's a hole down there. There you go, which fits on there. Line it up right there. Kind of hold it in place, and then drop the screw. Drop the screw down. All right. This is a number. This is a number 13, or a 13 millimeter with an extender. It's a deep well. That's the deepest I got. You just torque it down. Don't go too crazy. These parts are plastic, and you'll mess it up. Alright, so I'm just going to give it a little quarter turn here to tighten it. That's good enough. If you want it to be tighter, you can, but this is tight enough for me. I may have to loosen that to put the trigger in later, but we'll cross that bridge if we got to. In fact, let's go ahead and put the trigger in now. The hardest time getting that thing in there. There we go. Alright. Yep, so that slides in well. Perfect. Just what we wanted. Alright. And you'll notice there's two holes in the side of the gun, here and here. I have two long pins right here. They slide into the holes. So just line them up, slide them in. You should just be able to push them until you feel them pop. They'll lock into place. There's a retaining ring on both sides. There we go. Just lock them in. Let's give this one a little tap. First pin. Alright, here we go. That's in there. So we have the trigger guard in place. Let's go ahead and attach the butt plate back on the end of the gun, which goes like this. And you just take a regular Phillips head, and I've pulled this screw out so you can see. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to screw it out all the way. Just put it back in. Remember, all these parts are plastic, so you don't want to monkey them down like crazy. Just get them on there. There, that's tight enough. This one is hidden. It's not there, but I know it's right here. Just press and go. Alright, there we go. Butts on the stock. That's good. Alright, almost finished. Next, we're going to put the slide back in the gun itself. This part's easy. Just slide it on. Slide it in there. Take your trigger, or not your trigger, your firing pin, set it on top, and just slide it into the housing. That's it. Well, we actually just cocked the gun when we did that, but that's fine. We're going to need to put the barrel on as well, which is right here. This part takes some finesse, but essentially you have to get this ring over the end here as well as slide the housing into the chamber all at the same time, which is not necessarily difficult. And then you just screw the cap over the top. Oh, and that's it. Just make sure it's working. You can see the slide release still functions the way it should, so we'll go ahead and dry fire it. Slide release recesses, and we can cock it, and it comes back into place. Can't slide it anymore. That's it. That's all there is to it. Let's go ahead and see it eject a shell. I actually have some fake shells here. You can pick these up online or wherever you want. They're just some 12 gauge blank, not really blanks, they're just machined shells. So let's go ahead and load a few. There we go. And we'll go ahead and cycle them. So push it, load one up, pull the trigger. There we go. Both of them came out. Do not do this with live shells. These have little rubber caps in the end here which protect them, or not really protect them, they protect the gun itself. So that's all there is to it.